starting off the conversation today in our Clubhouse room. So give us a moment here. We're going to get started.
Michael, are you able to invite Marissa up on the stage?
Sure. Let me see what I can do here. Marissa, uh, give me a moment here.
Michael, I sent her the invitation. She should be able to come on.
Great, thank you. We're excited to hear from her today. Marissa, you should receive an invitation to come up on the stage. I, I see you in the room. Maybe we can invite her again because she came back in. There we go.
Hey, guys. Can you guys
Hey,
hear me
Marissa,
okay?
how's it going? Yeah, thanks for coming up on the stage. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I apologize. I was hitting some.
Oh, well, we got you loud and clear now, so that's great. Um, really glad that you could attend. I'm
Great.
Stephen Riggle. I'm the president of Miami Commercial here with Michael Hinton, Craig Emanuel, and Paul Cauchi, all from the Miami Commercial board. And really looking forward to hearing about your history and your present task, which is president of Otto, offering some lease security for landlords and taking the risk away from them as far as tenant defaults and dealing with those circumstances. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, then make sure to include something about those two amazing tennis matches last night and how that might relate to you.
I have to admit, and as much as I played tennis growing up, and I competed in college, I don't pay attention as much until like the finals. So I'll have to catch up on who won. I've got to catch up on that. But yes, thank you for having me today, everyone. So my background is a little multi-dimensional. I went to West Point and so served active duty military for 5 years during the Iraqi surge, and had a great opportunity of leading over 100 soldiers in combat at one point. And I got out about over a decade ago, and for the better part of the last decade, have been in commercial real estate in multiple kind of roles, property owner, and mostly tech and data plays. My kind of vision coming into this industry about 7 years ago now was, why isn't there kind of like an official source of truth in the industry, and there's such a lack of data, to make like simple decisions from tenant standpoint, even a broker standpoint. And so fast forward to about 2.5 years ago, I started a company with my co-founders called Otso. And just as Stephen described, we are the industry's first insurance for lease securitization. And so really the story behind why we started this actually came from being landlords ourselves, And we tried this on our own properties first. Our frustration was that gap that we always experience between our deal costs and what we would collect from the tenants in securitization. Obviously, qualifying tenants was a part of our frustration, but the foundational kind of challenge that we really wanted to bring, selfishly for our own properties, was like, how do we close that gap and collect more securitization? And so we have been doing this for 2.5 years. And as of just this past month, partnered with a 2.5 global insurer that will allow us to meet our rapidly increasing demand of deals that we're facilitating, as well as increase our securitization amount. So we now do up to $500,000.
Wow. So tell me, can you operationalize a little bit on your type of client, and if you're I guess a multifamily or a commercial office owner, how your service might benefit them by engaging with you?
Yes. Yeah, so we're actually not multifamily. We're strictly office, retail, industrial. So working with businesses over multifamily. There's similar products in the multifamily space for the residential tenants. So our sweet spot really to start was your Class B assets, because those were the types of assets that we own ourselves. So retail, industrial, flex warehouse were, a lot of the deals. It's actually, when we look at the deals that we have done and helped out, it's kind of like split down the middle, 35, 30, 30, 30, maybe a little bit more flex deals in your securitization amounts between up to 50 to 100 grand. And what we've seen in the market, what's been really exciting and interesting, is kind of your bigger ownership groups with some even Class A office type retail with these enterprise deals and securitization amounts of, upwards of like the $500,000 showing up in demand. And so I think one of the things that we get when people first hear about us is like, oh, are you like an insurance that like only backs like high risk tenants? And that's actually the opposite of what we do. A high risk tenant will most likely not qualify. We're about backing solid tenants and helping landlords, feel good about those decisions. And especially these enterprise companies that are coming to us now, they've got a lot of capital and just don't want to lock it up, right? And so yes, we are up to 40 states at this point, and cover all asset classes.
Oh,
Hey,
that's
Marissa,
interesting.
Yes.
got a question. So your customers, your clients, you're looking to talk to the landlord. So we want to make sure I want to understand this part of it, that you're not looking for a tenant to do like a synthetic lease on their equipment. You're really backing the landlord and the tenant improvements and the build out and the security deposit. That's really what you're talking about, right?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Yes, absolutely. So landlords like to use us for, really it's that increased protection that they gain out of the deal, right? And really what we're seeing and what's really exciting is that they're starting to come to us because we're proving with a lot of data that with the deals that we're doing is that they're attracting and retaining tenants with this, because obviously the byproduct of what we do is tenants don't have to put money down. So you're a tenant in looking at two offices and one is offering, insurance through OTSO, the tenants are going to those landlords. And so there's kind of like a marketing advantage and differentiation that our landlord customers have as opposed to the competition in their markets. But it's also, we have a algorithm, the application for tenants to apply. It's less than 5 minutes. The landlord receives a financial report on that business. And yeah, your more sophisticated, larger ownership groups have those teams that underwrite businesses typically, but like most of the regional local landlords, like such as myself and my team, don't have those sophisticated tools. And so having that kind of transparency up front is super, super helpful to them as well. And those reports are free.
So this is apparently way better than the old school way of pulling a Dun and Bradstreet on the tenant that might be interested in renting an office space, say in your property. You guys bring the information, and you're able to back up your information by underwriting the risk and taking on the risk from the landlord against default. Instead of the landlord handling that, you guys just, I guess, indemnify the landlord against risk of default up to a certain level.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as we all know, like credit scores for businesses are not as strong to evaluate as personal credit is out there, right? And so, and as landlords ourselves, we thought when we were building this product and the algorithm for the underwriting, we were like, what do we care about the most? We care about what money do they have in the bank, frankly, you know? And so a big chunk of our decision, we actually use a company called Plaid to connect straight to that tenant's business bank account. And a lot of our decision is based on, you know, what does their average deposits look like? How are they managing their money? Do they have even enough money for this lease period? And so arming, exactly like you said, Stephen, arming the landlord with this type of data in minutes, right? That would typically be very onerous if they are collecting that much detail. It's that advantage that we provide them as well.
So how do you structure it? So if I'm a landlord, or working for a landlord as a client that's got a 300,000 square foot building, and you're the leasing agent, say, for that property, are will the leasing agent slash landlord go to you all at the proposal stage so they can realize whether it's worth their time and effort to enter into complex negotiations with a suitable tenant?
Yeah, that's typically where the sweet spot is. We always say come to us as early as possible. So a lot of our customers will come to us before they even have a deal so that they can leverage the marketing of, hey, we have deposit-free leasing here. Come to us, right? But yeah, to how it kind of works within a deal is we always like to say around like the LOI stage or when the tenants like toured your space, and then they offer it as, hey, you know, there's this option that you can do instead of locking up capital and deposit. Here's an application to take that. The tenant does the application, takes 5 minutes or less. The landlord gains the decision, and then just kind of goes in and negotiates it out. So what we like to say is we take out this friction point that, and my co-founder was a broker too. He's like, I used to have all this anxiety sometimes around getting to that portion of the deal around the financials, right? Especially as a tenant rep. And so we really thought through, it's like the value to the landlord is one thing, as I just described, and the tenant. But to brokers, you mentioned like leasing reps, we're arming them with an innovation to help their clients succeed even better and attract tenants and fill their spaces. That's their job, but we're also helping them kind of remove this friction point that typically is in the deal. So
So
it's
it
really like a win-win-win for everybody.
so really it's like in a sense you're pre-approved almost based on your indexing. Do you provide people with a score? Is it like a 1 to 100 indexing for a particular tenant? Is that how?
We internally have that. We don't share that information. We strictly share kind of like the financial information. But what we do is, and what we've actually seen, I love that you brought that up, is although like our customers and people go primarily to landlords, we've actually received a lot of tenant reps come to us on behalf of their clients and are like, is there a way that, we can leverage this in a deal and propose it to the landlord? And that's actually what we've started to see is businesses or tenant reps on behalf of their businesses wanting to get pre-approved through us. And again, when they bring it to the landlord, it's all of that information plus, oh, by the way, the securitization is backed by a A-rated company with pretty darn good credit, right? And so it's been interesting to kind of see that coming and seeing that in the market happen more often.
And you all are
Marissa,
active in a number of states. Are you active here in Florida at this time?
We absolutely are. Yes, we're in up to 40 states. around the country, and Florida is definitely one of them, which is why I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah, a lot of people want to come to Florida. I noticed, Marissa, in your resume that you've quite a great background, including West Point. So, tell us a little bit about how you got this thing started from your background, and I know you said you and your partners were landlords and you were looking to qualify tenants. So, any insight on your military background and those kinds of things that brought you to the where you are today?
Yeah, I think it feels like a world ago now. It was like 20 plus years ago that I was in college. But yeah, I obviously gained some great life lessons and disciplines through that experience. And I think kind of at the core of it is just this passion for solving problems and helping people, right? Because it's like that was one of the things I struggled with, as many veterans do when I got out of the military. Is it's like I need a purpose again versus serving for the American people and fighting for the country, and so that really is what drives me. But also kind of the skills that I learned around problem solving and just never giving up. As an entrepreneur, you're always running into into road bumps. It's never a smooth process. Um, and I think just that you just got to keep on going, and you will figure out a way, which we have, has really played a part in for internally, personally for me, just knowing this is going to work out. It's going to help a lot of people, which we're really excited about. Obviously too, it's the leadership skills that I learned, and I love building teams, and we're building our team and growing ourselves, and that portion of it is a passion of mine as well, is recruiting really special people that want to jump onto the mission with you, and seeing them develop as professionally as people, as we move forward is really fun for me.
I
Sure,
think
and we.
Pablo, did you have a question or a comment for Marissa or the rest of the panel here?
Yeah, yeah. Hi, it's Pablo Cornell with KW Commercial. No, I was just
Hey,
interested.
Pablo.
How are you?
Good.
I was just interested in, given the fact that you've chosen to come into Florida, and especially if you go into South Florida, we realize that a lot of our quote unquote like flakier tenants, at least at the surface, might be international. I was wondering if you've explored the possibility of vetting um, tenants that claim to be big in Brazil or Japan or London, but the landlord doesn't have the resources or time or even desire to go into those countries and explore if that's true. Have you looked into doing this for international type tenants?
We haven't had any deals like that yet. All of our deals are U.S. based, but certainly that is something on our roadmap from a capability standpoint, is to help. But from a standpoint of these larger entities, and one of our other big value props is like franchises, for example, and having national franchises come to us. And they're like, hey, we're executing like 20 deals in the next year, which means we're going to lock up millions. Is there any way that we can incorporate you into our strategy, and save that money? And so it's been exciting to see that model out. But absolutely, international is definitely in our roadmap, even from an offering standpoint, going into the UK and Canada.
Yeah,
I,
exactly. There might be a few countries that are like lower hanging fruit just because you can set up a relationship there and somebody that knows, the banking system, the credit bureaus, and people's
Absolutely.
reputations, and that
Yeah.
might help some of our sectors here. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. That's great.
So, Marissa, this is Craig Emanuel. Can you explain your policy and how you issue your policies, the amount, and what happens after a tenant gets approved?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the policy itself, so I kind of talked you through the process. The tenant applies, and then it's negotiated in the deal. So the fee itself is between 5 to 12% of the total amount guaranteed. So depending on how we end up, underwriting the tenant. To put it in simple numbers, we always like to say for every $10,000 in a policy, expect to pay average of $70 more a month in rent. So how we structure it from a fee payment standpoint is the landlord is actually the one that pays us the fee. And then they pass that fee to the tenant through rent. And in some cases, we've seen landlords, negotiate the fee as they want. That's obviously not when a tenant gets pre-approved and comes to us and sees the fee. But we have seen them, negotiate it beyond kind of like what they're charging us. Some of them are actually collecting more rent, leveraging us, which has been interesting to see. And so the reason y'all are all probably wondering, like, why does the tenant not pay you? If essentially the tenant is the insured in this case, and the reason is that if a tenant's going to default, then if they're not paying rent, they're not going to be paying for this policy, and this policy is meant to cover the landlord. And so the landlord pays us and then passes it on because we don't want that to be at risk for the landlord. Obviously, we built this ourselves, and we're like, okay, yeah, we never want that at risk. And so, yes, once the tenant is approved and they negotiated in the deal, we are simply added as an addendum into the actual lease agreement. Um, and we are, we cover the entire term. If they want to do, in some cases they do the burn downs, we're able to accommodate that as another addendum to the lease when that's ready. But
So
it,
so the
it
loss
is part
payee,
of
it,
the lease at the end of the day.
sorry, I just had a question. The loss payee, and then I'm going to ask you to describe some situation, without naming names, of course, that you've had to actually make some retribution or payment. The loss payee is the landlord in every case. Uh,
The landlord pays the fee, but in a case of default, which by the way, we cover every instance of default that's stated in the lease, we pay out the landlord. The landlord's the one obviously that gets those funds. Was that answer to your question,
yeah,
Stephen?
yeah, it kind of does. It just kind of we can go way into the weeds with this, but what about like, uh, if the tenant defaults, and there's a dispute over maybe some downtime or something like this, do you guys step in at that point, or is it strictly, the tenant is just gone? Do you get
Yeah,
into a situation?
Yeah, so like our deal is that the tenant has to be like officially at default, like put in a state of default, for them to file a claim with us. And reason being, as you all know, and as landlords ourselves, yeah, we want to see tenants succeed, right? Because it costs us a lot to turn those spaces around. And so in some cases, when a tenant can't pay rent, you'll give them a little bit more and then amortize at the end when they can pick up on it. So that is not when we would come in the deal. It's only when the tenant's in official default, if that makes sense.
So just to kind of turn this one rock over, that's kind of the white elephant or the elephant in the room. What was your experience in this sector, with the pandemic? Because there must have been a lot of defaults. Do you have any generic examples you can paint for us into how you guys experienced that situation?
Yeah, so I think as an entrepreneur, one of the big factors is timing. And we were very lucky from a standpoint of we launched right around, like right when COVID happened. And so we actually had no exposure, thank goodness. And so with COVID, actually, we're one of those kind of products that because of everything that happened, landlords are looking for innovative ways, to move forward with technology and attract tenants, retain tenants, while obviously businesses in this environment are doing whatever they can to keep cash on hand and not lock capital up that's unnecessary. And so we were very fortunate that we didn't have any exposures to COVID because we launched in the middle of it.
I would assume that the bond rating of the, if it's a significant entity like a Prologis or somebody like this, that taking the exposure that they might have off of them and transferring it to your, insurance or reinsurer, that would help their bond rating substantially if there's a questionable tenant or something like this that they have exposed.
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. Again, we're backed by a $2.5 billion global insurer. So it's like liability to us is what we're seeing, and we're talking with the Prologises, the regions, looking to talk to the Regencies of the world. These big landlords with big portfolios to offload. But what's interesting too, and I think still time will tell if you can imagine from a valuation standpoint how this can play into appraisals down the road. And our landlords, our average landlord is asking for 300% more in securitization than they typically would. So to put in simple terms, like in one of our properties, we were doing 1 month, we were collecting 1 month on cash, but with OTSO, we're collecting like 5 to 6 months. And so you've got this exponential kind of increase in securitization. And so that plays on to kind of, we don't have data to prove this yet, but we have a lot of landlords like, like this is definitely interesting and can play even into that part, of the property.
So if you've got a landlord that just signed a great lease and did a deal with you, and they're looking to flip it to another investor, how are you handling the lender on the buyer's side? Are they looking at this as more attractive because it's security, or are they asking a lot of questions about like as an impediment to the sale? How does that handled? Or maybe you're too
There
new. Maybe you haven't flipped any yet, so I don't know.
we
That's
actually
what.
have. We actually recently did one. We've done 3 of these already, and didn't have any friction at all. We just passed it on.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
Good news.
Marissa, Craig Emanuel again. Just quick question. So, with your particular product that you're offering into the market, generally what we would see is a tenant come to the table with cash or a letter of credit. How is
hmm
it that your product is better in that situation, and what other benefits do you see from a transactional standpoint that would assist the deal coming together?
Are you talking about it advantages from the landlord perspective or the tenant's perspective?
Well, okay. So how I'm understanding you is that if I was a regular tenant and I was looking to get approval,
hmm
I would have certain deposits I would need to make, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And your service, your product that you offer is you don't have to bring that cash to the table. We are going to guarantee that cash. So as a tenant, I'm able to keep maybe my security deposit in my pocket, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, and with cash, that's no brainer, right, for a tenant. I don't want to lock this capital up. I'm just going to use this insurance. And instead of paying 30 grand, down and locking that up, I'll be paying a couple hundred more, in rent per month. From a letter of credit, I love that you bring that up, is that, you're still locking up that capital in your bank. You can't touch it. And on top of that, you have to do an annual renewal with your bank. And oh, by the way, you're paying fees. And so that's another reason. Actually, one of the deals we're looking at right now is a tenant's just like, $350,000 letter of credit. I don't want to leverage this. How can I use you guys? So those are the advantages, and the excitement we're seeing around the tenants that we're working with is just basically simply, we don't have to lock this capital up in any way. This is great.
So
And
are you seeing deals structured whereas a landlord may say, "Listen, go through OTSO, save the security deposit, and maybe I don't have to give you so much in tenant improvement credit, or some other factor that may be needed in order to cement the deal." Are you seeing structural creativity that?
Oh yeah. And they're going to us, and it's just kind of back to that where we used it on our own properties is the landlord might ask typically without us for $10,000 in cash or letter of credit or whatever, or instead they're going, hey, go apply for $30,000 and see if you and get approved for that. And so that's been what's been really interesting is seeing them just get that more protection, which again closes the gap between those deal costs that we pay and we, when I say we mean, I'm saying landlords pay and TI and commissions and whatnot.
What's your average approval amount, and what's your maximum approval amount?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we started out like a year and a half ago, and we were just doing small deals like 5 to 15 grand. Right now, our average application is around like 100K, and with this insurance partner, we're able to approve up to 500,000. And in the next six months to a year, there's no doubt that we'll be able to increase that amount. But we started out with 50,000, grew it to 100,000, and now we're at 500,000.
So, Marissa, with your your deep tentacles apparently going into both the tenant and the landlord side, what are the next steps for the company after you've kind of rolled out your program? Do you have some side businesses or other avenues that you all are planning to expand into? Because you're going to have quite the set of connections in terms of landlords on this.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of ways that we're looking at, even from a scaling standpoint, and partnering with like these listing sites and firms like VTS, Occupier, that help kind of enhance their already existing customer base, right? In the next 3 to 5 years, you can imagine though, and I'm gonna. This is, I love that you brought this up because it loops me back to why I got in this industry and to begin with, was that in collecting these leases, through insurance, we're going to be able to extrapolate data, actual lease data. And I'm not saying like landlord A, landlord B, but like general trends off of actual lease data. And so you can imagine from even just like a comp standpoint, having actual, lease data that helps, as a broker, arm you to set your client up for success. And so then there's also like multiple products that we can extrapolate from this from an insurance standpoint that just make it easier for a tenant. They have to do all of these other things that, there's insurance even associated with the lease itself that they have to have typically, right? And so there's other verticals we can expand to there as well.
So I want to bring up just briefly for some of our listeners, they may not be familiar with the REACH program, which is part of the National Realtor Association, and you're part of that program on the commercial part. If you got a moment and tell us a little bit about how it was working with the REACH program for NAR and the kind of support and I don't want to call it an incubator status, that's not the right term, but how it was to work with that group on the REACH program.
Yeah, it has been an honor and privilege. They have been pivotal to us from just not only, they do invest in you and you're right, it's not an incubator. Actually, the companies they usually take are, they like to call it a scale up program. So companies that are making revenue, well, some of these companies well in like the millions in ARR, but want help with scaling more and getting more exposure. And so the program itself just offers a lot from not only like the mentorship side of things, and getting connected with big players in the industry, but it's also just being associated with, as everyone knows, NAR is a $5 billion global organization that's pretty big, has been and pivotal in being branded with them, and just having all of their support. We've raised some other money from other investors and worked with other investors, and by far the Reach program has been, just the most, brought the most value to us, which at the end of the day, being entrepreneurs, when you're raising money, those are the type of investors you want to work with, right? So it's been a privilege, and being able to get exposed with them through the conferences. I don't know if anyone's going to C5 or the conference in San Diego in November. We'll be there, so would love to meet anyone on here in person. But yes, it's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I know I'm planning on going to C5, and there's a few other people in our audience. Jennifer Forbes and several others of us are going to be in San Diego as well. So I look forward to
Awesome.
meeting you in person, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other people here that will want to say hello and meet you as well.
Yes,
I
yeah,
see
I would love that.
our clubhouse leader Tamika popped in for a minute. I know she's got a whole bunch of things going on today. Tamika, do you want to say something, and then we'll jump over to Fernando as well?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys so much for the for running the room today. Marissa, it's really great to meet you. And yes, I will be at the NARC 5 event as well. So if you're going to be there, I'm looking forward to meeting you, and I may be coming to San Diego. Um,
Oh, I love that. I'm actually speaking at y'all's conference on the 1st too. They're in Miami.
okay, wonderful,
So
wonderful.
yes.
No, I'm here doing a candidate screening here up in Broward. So thanks, Craig and Stephen, for leading the way this morning, leading the way this afternoon. So I'm just going to go ahead and let it jump over to Fernando.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm loving this weekly Clubhouse conversations. They're very engaging, and I think they're providing incredible value. So, thanks again to Tamika, Steve, and Michael, and everyone at Miami Commercial for setting these up. Marissa, I actually have had a couple of great conversations with your CEO, Josh Feinberg,
Yeah, okay.
and I have found that. This is really a very exciting option for commercial brokers. And I was been trying to put a deal together where the tenant is actually in the airline industry, and they basically what they do is they deconstruct airplane parts, and they basically refurbish a lot of parts that are used for other for putting together other airline equipment. And what I found interesting is that my landlord was very concerned about the industry where they were coming from. They were concerned about their financials over the last year. Of course, airlines, anything related to the airline industry has been hit very, very hard. And what I find most valuable here is, and this is the recommendation that I would make, because what happened is once the information was in front of the landlord and the red flags started to appear or the concerns, um, you know, it, as I'm sure many of you brokers can attest to, sometimes people kind of limits your pardon me, I was getting a call. It kind of limits your ability to say, well, there's here option B. So one of the recommendations that I would make and that I made to this company is go to Otso first. Get that insurance, get that quote, and put it as part of your package when you're presenting it to the landlord, so that they are aware that there is an additional level of security for that lease. And so I just want to recommend definitely a company to look into. They're very responsive, and we've been able to get a lot of information quickly for our tenants. But if you are working with a tenant now that is in an industry where these concerns are going to come up, or maybe the balance sheet doesn't look the same as it did 2 years ago, then I would highly suggest, before you even present an LOI on a space, that you ask them to look into this option.
Thank you so much, Fernando. And that's exactly why we're here. You just sold it for me.
Great. Well, I'm going to take this moment and just remind everybody about the conference that Marissa is going to be at, and that's going to be October 1st. If you haven't seen the advertising or the promotions, it's going to be the Miami Commercial Conference, and we're scheduling that for October 1st. So reach out to anybody up here on the stage, Stephen, Fernando, Tamika, Craig, or myself, and we can get you the information on registering for that event on October 1st. Stephen, you want to tell a couple more details about it?
Yeah, sure. There's several things going on at the conference. We have David Whitaker, who's the Greater Miami Visitors and Convention Bureau new CEO. So he's going to speak there and tell us everything we don't know already about Miami and the future that's happening here. And then we have, of course, Marissa and the other attendees on the REACH panel, which will be very interesting. Jennifer Woolman, I think, is going to moderate that panel. So that'll be a very interesting insight into Marissa and her business, as well as some of the other tech, fintech, really startups and development companies. Also, we have a transportation panel with several notable people. We have Aaron Stoller from 13th Floor. We have I'm dropping his name, but the director of Dade County Transportation works for the county, Miami-Dade County. And we have Rafael Romero is going to talk about brokerage. And we have also on that panel the president of Brightline, who's going to talk about the Miami-Orlando train that's going to be up and running, I believe, in about 18 or 24 months, and all the stations along the way. So it's all about transportation-oriented development around the stations, as well as to include the local Metro Rail train service. That'll be interesting. And then the other thing we have, which is going to be exciting, is a crypto blockchain panel. And we have several notable speakers on that panel. Lady from Proppy, which is a facilitator for transactions on blockchain and cryptocurrency transactions to purchase real estate, and several other fabulous cryptocurrency people, including Drew Hinkes, who's an attorney very early into the blockchain and crypto system. So I'm sure Drew's sitting very pretty right now, because I think we first heard him speak, Mike, like 5-6 years ago. So I'm sure he's a busy and successful guy in that segment. So there's a lot of things happening with the October 1st conference. We're looking forward to everybody stepping up and attending. It's at the Biltmore Hotel. So thanks for letting me go through.
Sure. And while we still have Marissa, we still have a few more minutes. Is there anybody that has some questions? Raise your hand and we'll bring you up on stage if you've got some questions on qualifying tenants and this whole new concept that Marissa's bringing to the market in the last couple of years. So now's your time to ask the co-founder
Hey,
any of the
Michael.
questions. Yeah.
Michael, this is Marissa. I apologize. I am running late for a lunch meeting,
All right.
another meeting. So I'm going to have to hop off. But if I could put share my email information, and would love to talk to anyone that is interested. Thank you again for
Sure.
helping me, giving me this opportunity to meet you all. And I hope I can meet you all in person very soon.
Absolutely. So follow Marissa, click on her profile, and her contact information will be on her profile here in Clubhouse, and you can connect with her, and maybe she'll get back to you on some of those questions. But Marissa, awesome information, and thanks for helping us out and opening our eyes to this new way of getting some deals done, and that's what we're all about. So thanks very much, and good luck in your next meeting. So
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Take care,
Okay.
Marissa.
All right.
See you
Cheers,
in
everyone.
October 1st. Take care.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Take care.
Yeah. All right. Take care. And Stephen or Fernando, Tamika, Craig, you guys got anything else on today's session? We're still looking for ideas. If you've got some ideas on a topic for next Friday, we'll be back here on Clubhouse, all things commercial real estate in South Florida. Who's going to take us out today? Stephen, Tamika, who else?
Well, this is Craig Mann. I just wanted to add that if individuals out there, they want more information, it's OTSO, OTSO.io. OTSO.io is the website. And I just wanted to say this could be an awesome tool for individuals, for brokers, looking to get a tenant approved and maybe save them some money. Being a value add to a client is important.
I think that thanks for that, Craig. And I think that this is just an awesome product. And Marissa's gone, but I was very, very interested in the innovative idea behind it, and apparently she's in 40 states, or the company's in 40 states, so they're doing amazingly well. I'm really looking forward to hearing more from her and the other Reach companies October 1st. That's going to be fabulous. I don't see anyone else with their hand up, so we could. It's 12:46. We can call it a day. Appreciate everybody, Mike, Tamika, Craig, and Fernando. Thanks for speaking, and everybody have a good one. Take care.
You guys have a great one as well. Look forward to seeing our next topic early next week.
Thank you, everybody.